Good afternoon, everybody. Please, can you confirm if you can hear me? Can anyone hear me? Good afternoon.
Very clearly. Good afternoon.
Yes, thank you. Thank you very much. Good afternoon, everyone. Good afternoon. Thank you for confirming. I'm excited to welcome you to today's webinar. And while I welcome you, I would crave your indulgence to give us a couple of minutes to let some people join the call, seeing that our speakers are already here. So if we can just give them 2 to 3 minutes, we would start officially at 8 minutes past 1. So let's just give them 3 minutes and then we will start. Thank you very much. All right, ladies and gentlemen, it is exactly 8 minutes past 1, and we're going to begin this conversation immediately. Once again, good afternoon. And once again, please confirm that you can hear me loud and clear.
Loud and clear.
Thank you very much, Mr. Senator. Thank you so much. Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Victoria Moldor. I am an associate at Rock Attorneys, and I'm excited to be moderating today's event. It is lovely to see you all today. Join us to learn from the wealth of knowledge of some of the distinguished speakers that we have here on board. And so on behalf of the trustees, members, and executives of the OBA Lawyers Assembly, please, I want to welcome you to today's webinar, themed Transnational Practice, Building a T-Shaped Legal Career from Nigeria to the global stage. I'm certain that a lot of us here are with some sort of expectation as to what we would be learning or what we'll be taking home from the conversation today. I mean, we have three speakers who will be conversing and doing presentations on three different areas that are of, high importance. We have Mr. Chichi who will be speaking on technology, data, and emerging regulations. We have Mr. Overland who will be speaking on the international business of trade and investment law. And of course, we have Mr. Senator Iheyen who will be speaking on intellectual property, digital economy law. So these are all very interesting areas that are not your conventional litigation practice, so to say, for a lot of lawyers. And I'm certain that while some of the terms may be technical, I know that our guests are going to do so much in making you understand how each of these areas can help build your practice without necessarily eradicating the traditional litigation, chieftaincy courts, or likewise commercial disputes that you are certainly used to. So before I go on to welcome the first speaker who will carry on with the presentation, please permit me to do a brief background for those of you who are not aware or informed of what OLAS means. I'll just do a brief background so that we can be on the same page. So the Oba Lawyers Assembly is the umbrella organization for all indigenous lawyers from Oba community in Idemili South local government area of Anambra State. And the assembly offers legal support to the community for the advancement of social, economic, and political general welfare and interest of the community. They encourage law students, young lawyers, senior practitioners in every way possible to improve and strengthen their knowledge and practice of the law through webinars such as this, seminars, workshops, academic and practical engagements. They advise on progressive customs, native laws, or practices, and they ensure that the customary and native laws of the community are in line with, ever-changing existing federal, state, and local government laws. And in bid to attain some of these, their objective, they've put together this webinar so that you can learn from the wealth of knowledge of persons who have been practicing and who have experience in these diverse areas, so that you can also see how you can, take off on a trajectory of your own in any area, any of these areas of your choice. And so please, before we move on, I would like to give a few ground rules for the course of the conversation. Please ensure that all times, except you're speaking, that's as the speaker or the moderator, please keep your mics muted at all times. And for the lawyers who are on call, please, we would be needing some information from you, your name, your email address, your branch, and your Supreme Court enrollment number, to ensure that you get your CPD point certificate at the end of the program. So if you drop your details now and you go off the call, don't forget this conversation is being recorded. It will be deemed that you didn't learn anything. And of course, I doubt the CPD point will be allocated to you. So while you enjoy the conversation, do well to drop your details and just have your pens and papers ready to ensure that you learn out of all that will be discussed today. So I hope we're on the same page. If we're on the same page, let me see some thumbs up or likes or comments in the chat box if we're on the same page, if we've all agreed. Thank you. Beautiful. Thank you so much. We have attendees who are eager to learn. And so not to waste our time, because time is money, please join me as I welcome our first speaker for today's conversation. She is the counsel at Nigerian Revenue Service, and she would be talking in the next 20 minutes on technology, data, and emerging regulations. In light of this, our ever-changing legal environment, it's important to keep abreast on how technology and emerging regulations affect us in our practice and generally as individuals. Ladies and gentlemen, with a virtual round of applause, let us welcome Ms. Uchechi Ofebu as she comes up to give us her presentation in the next couple of minutes. So I want to see your thumbs up or your virtual claps for Ms. Uchechi. Ms. Uchichi, the floor is yours. Thank you so much for taking out time from your very busy schedule to be with us today, and we look forward to learning a lot from you. Over to you, please. Welcome.
Thank you so much, Victoria. Please confirm that you can hear me.
Yes, loud and clear.
Okay, please pardon me. I kind of have a sore throat, so my voice may not be as audible, but I'll do my best to be very audible. So I would proceed to share my slides, my PowerPoint presentation, so I could just speak through the slides. So just a moment. Please confirm that you can see my slide, my screen.
Yes, we can.
Okay, great. Okay, so without much ado, and given that I have just about, I think, 25 minutes, I would proceed to run through my slides. But just before I begin, of course, I would not be able to cover the entire gamut of this topic given the limited time. So I believe the organizers would share the slides subsequently for those of you who want to read more about it. Um, so I will just proceed to run through it. Now, because of the breadth of our topic today, I've just decided to streamline my presentation to technology, data, and data privacy, right? Because I think that when you talk about technology, data privacy is one area that is very key to businesses and individuals, particularly with the emergence and how we see technology moving at a fast and disruptive pace. So moving on, I have my outline. So we have technology and data-driven reality, why data privacy matters, meaning of personal data, key data privacy terms, global privacy regulatory landscape, the overview of the NDPA, the lawful basis principles, data subject rights, key development under the GATE 2025, emerging challenges, data protection obligations, opportunities for lawyers, and looking ahead. So we move on, technology and the data-driven reality. Of course, which flows from our team, technology, data privacy, and emerging regulation. Of course, we live in a reality where every of our interactions, right, today generates a constant stream of personal data. Data is at the heart of what we do. Some would say that data is the new oil, right? From unlocking our phones to sending messages. Now the world is going, I mean, the world is digital and we are moving at a very unprecedented rate, right? So everybody is moving digital, unlike then where we had, like, would I say, when we didn't know what the internet was. But the internet has gone beyond what we see today, right? So we have things like tools, the AI tools, robotics, cybersecurity, different things, you name it. So from unlocking our phones to send a message or even using AI tools, we see that most of these interactions, right, on our daily activities, even to when we go to supermarkets to buy things, and then of course they sometimes they ask you for your information when you're being onboarded to an app. Of course, when you're for lawyers like us that deal with client information or deal with organizational information, we are constantly working with data, right? And this information, as we know it, it flows through a diverse ecosystem depending on which area or which sector, apologies, which sector that you work in, be it the banks, healthcare, e-commerce, telecoms, legal, government agencies. We see that there is always an exchange, even when you don't work in some of these industries. By default, through your ongoing activities, we see that we exchange data, we exchange information one way or the other with some of these industries. Healthcare providers, for an example, when you go to the hospital, of course, you're asked some health data, some health information in order for you to perhaps so that the hospital could generate, a file, a health file for you. So all of these things are interconnected and they flow through. We can see that this ecosystem is quite interconnected. We live in a data driven world. And now the fundamental question we ask ourselves is no longer if our data is collected, but who controls this data? How is this data being used? How are these data that we give being processed? Right. So this is what, of course, this is where privacy comes in, and this is what we are going to learn today. What is this personal data? Who are those that use the personal data? How can we secure this personal data? How can we properly put in measures? What are some of these measures that we should put in place to, make sure that our data is protected? So the next, why does privacy matter? Of course, I think we've spoken through it. I mean, first of all, the foundation is the fact that it is a fundamental human right. I mean, I don't want to be biased to the lawyers because I don't know if there are other people across other industries joining, but I'm sure that a large gamut of the attendees here are lawyers, and we know that the Constitution guarantees that that um, privacy is a fundamental right, which must be protected, and the Constitution is the fundamental law. So every other law derives, relevance from the Constitution. Of course, we have protecting organizational reputation, right? So you have, I mean, as organizations must strive to ensure that the privacy or the data of the individuals, right, or the data subject that they deal with is adequately protected, because this, I mean, when there are breaches, it could result in loss of customer confidence, long-term reputational damage, and of course regulatory, enforcement, as we see it today. So building trust in digital economy technology, which is why we're here. Consumers are more likely to engage with organizations that they trust, right? So organizations that through years they have shown over time, I mean, organizations that you don't see in the news, or perhaps the regulators are always chasing, or you see that there is one data protection, data privacy breach or incident. So when your customers have that trust in you, it helps to bring, more business, to your company. So it's strong privacy practices also enhances such trust, which is why your data must be secured as a business. Managing legal and regulatory risk. Of course, I've spoken about this. Compliance with laws, right? And when you comply with existing laws, which helps to protect personal data, it helps to avoid regulatory sanctions and penalties, and this we'll discuss in more details as we go ahead. So the next is personal data. So the question is, what is personal data? And it is very simple. Personal data is simply any information that can be used to identify an individual, such as this can be your name, this can be your phone number, your email address, your NIN, your BVN, your passport number, just any information that you can use, any metric, any information that you can actually use to identify an individual is called personal data. Now, there is a note that I have put here, which says that not all data is treated equally. Now, what does this mean? This means that there are different types of, there are, of course, there are a special categories of data which, by virtue of the law, needs to be accorded more care, right? And these are called sensitive personal data, right? So under the law, sensitive personal data, these are categories of data that are considered particularly private, right? Because where there is a breach, or where these data are misused or disclosed, it could expose an individual to, discrimination, identity theft, and all of that. So there has to be like an extra care which is given to this data. And by virtue of Nigerian Data Protection Act, the law provides certain data that are categorized as sensitive personal data, which are listed below: genetic and biometric data, your health data, your sex, your sex life or sexual orientation, your race or ethnic data, etc. So moving on, we go to key data privacy terms. So what are some of these terms? I'm sure some of us see some of these terms and we're wondering, what do these means, particularly for the data enthusiasts in the house, or for the lawyers in the house who, maybe are not really in the data privacy space. You have data controller, right? So data controllers are, in short, they are individuals, private entities who determines the purpose and means of processing the data, right? Take for an example, your healthcare provider, right? Maybe I go to the hospital and then I submit certain data. Of course, the hospital, let's say maybe a Samaria hospital for an example. Samaria Hospital would be considered a data controller because they determine the purpose and means in which your data is used. So when they collect that data, of course, they use that data to, process your health records. They use that data to open a file. They use that data to run certain tests on you. So they are largely the people that determine the purpose of which your data is being processed. You also have your data processor. Your data processor, basically, these are people that act on behalf of or the direction of, a data controller. Take for an example again, say for example a bank, say Standard Chartered Bank for an example, they engage the services of an insurance provider, right? So the insurance providers, or perhaps they engage the services of, let's say, a third party processor. Perhaps they're trying to create an app or something, right? So the processor would request certain information from the bank to help it in doing what it needs to do. So these are entities that act on behalf of or at the direction of a data processor. So they only process data or information based on the direction given to them by data processor. Then you have a data subject. Data subject is you and I, right? We are people whom our data are being processed. Means an individual to whom a personal data relates. So you and me are basically data subjects in short or summarily. Sensitive personal data, I've spoken about what sensitive personal data is. Data controller and data processor of major importance. Now, these are categories of, process data controllers and processors that the law recently carved out, right, by virtue of the Data Protection Act. And there was a guidance that was recently released, right, that sheds more light on who a data controller and data processor is. And there are certain metrics that an organization has to meet before an organization can be categorized, right, as data controllers or data processors of major importance. For an example, where an organization processes a certain number, right, of personal data, or for example they process a certain value, a particular value of personal data, or personal data that is of significance to the economy. So these people would be categorized as DCPMIs, right? And there are also different categories which we will talk about much later. Then of course personal data, we've talked about personal data breach. So what do we mean when we say personal data breach? This is where there has been, a breach of security to your data, which leads to the loss or destruction of your data, or unauthorized disclosure or use of your data. Which is why, as lawyers or even as data subjects, right, we are always very particular. And of course data minimization is key. That which is why when we are being encouraged to ask questions, right, when we visit certain places and they're asking for irrelevant data. So some of these data, or perhaps they don't have adequate, security measures in place. So this is what you refer to as personal data breach, where there has been leakages. And I'm sure that we've seen in the news on several occasions where there have been breach of personal data. Processing simply means the operations that it's being done to process or work on your data. The set of operations that you do, this could be as little as collection, data collection. Again, using the bank or the hospital scenario, when you go to a bank, when you go to a hospital, and then you're asked to provide some certain information, that collection is regarded under the law as processing. So things that constitute processing, collection, recording, organization, structuring, storage, all of these things are processing of personal data. So what these are set of operations that are performed on your personal data. Pseudonymization, right? This is where your data is processed in such a manner that you can no longer be attributed to a data subject, right? Provided that such information is kept separately, because so there is a difference between pseudonymization and anonymization. Now, for pseudonymization, the data can actually be the person who pseudonymizes the data can actually return that data to its original state. So pseudonymization means where the data can no longer, so you are kind of obstructing the data such that the data cannot be attributed to a data subject. But that method in which is used has to be kept secret. It has to be kept separately and be subject to adequate protection to ensure that it's not being able to or perhaps a hacker or whoever is not able to reverse what has been done. So moving forward, we have the global privacy regulatory landscape. So these are some of the laws, the data privacy laws that govern data in different regulatory landscape. But the focus here for us is Nigeria, and I've spoken about Nigerian Data Protection Act, and I don't know how many of us are quite abreast of the GADE, right? Nigerian Data Protection Act Application Directive, which was released sometime in May last year. So overview of the Nigerian Data Protection Act. So the NDPA is the primary legal framework. Now, before the NDPA, of course, we had the NDPR and the NDPR implementation framework for those of us who, work in the data privacy space, right? Before, Nigeria did not have a substantive data protection act that governed, data protection in Nigeria. And this gave rise to the enactment of the Nigerian Data Protection Act sometime in June to safeguard the fundamental rights and freedoms of data subjects in Nigeria. And the regulator in charge of doing this is called the Nigerian Data Protection Commission, right? This commission was established by virtue of the NDPA to regulate the processing of personal data, to enforce data subject rights. Moving on, what are some of the lawful bases, right? That lawful basis that data processors can process your personal data, right? So we have 6 major lawful bases in which data processors can process your personal data. First, you have your consent, right? So this basically means that where the data subject, you as a data subject, where you agree to the processing of your personal data, right? I'm sure for some of us that perhaps open maybe mobile applications, you see where you have like I agree button or a consent button, which you typically click, right, to in order for the app or application to further process your data. And some of us are also visit websites, right? You would see where the website shows the policy and it shows you, oh, do you consent to this? Do you agree? Do you not agree? Do you opt out to this? So that is basically you giving permission, right, for the processing of your data. For the performance of a contract, this is where this basically deals with when you say a contract is basically more or less like an agreement between two or more parties to complete maybe something, an arrangement for on behalf of another party who is the customer. So for an example, where a service provider, a customer, right, processes personal data in order to fulfill their obligations under the contract. So for an example, where where a service provider needs to process your data in order to provide services to you. So that is a lawful basis in which, right, that service provider can rely upon, which is performance of a contract. So before they can provide that service to you, they have to rely, on that contract. For an example, say Chomike places an order for a wig, right? So the disclosure of her address and phone number and all of that you share, it's a contract, because they need those information to be able to deliver those items to you. Compliance with legal obligation. So this is where processors provide or process your personal data in order to comply with a legal obligation, right? So if, for example, your employers, they process, I'm sure when you are employed in a certain organization, they require like your health data, right? So where those information are being used, perhaps like in cases of emergency or something, to process your personal or to register you with a HMO, that is an example of compliance with legal obligation. Then we have others to protect the vital interests. Really, this basically deals largely with health emergencies. So where of course, you perhaps slumps, or somebody slumps in the workplace and they have to rush you to the hospital. Of course, the hospital would request for your health data. So remember I said collection is a form of processing. So where your employees give those data to the employers, that is a form of processing, and which is permissible. So we have also performance of public tasks carried out in public interest, and legitimate interest. So for legitimate interest, this is one lawful basis that is sort of flexible, right? So of course, but the law, right, under the gate, puts certain parameters that a processor has to consider in order to fit into this particular lawful basis. So moving on, principles of personal data. So these are guides or guidelines that processors controllers should work with, right, in implementing or processing your personal data in order to be on the right side of the law, right? So you have transparency. This means that you have to display your privacy notice or provide information to your customer before collecting any piece of information, be it in the hospital, in the banks, or anything. They have to understand the reasons why you are collecting those data, right? And which is why you see on most companies' website, they have their privacy policy, and those privacy policies, there are certain parameters that the law provides that must be contained in that privacy policy, which goes to transparency, so that the customers or the data subject can be aware of the purpose for which that data is being processed. Data minimization, and I think I spoke about this earlier. This just means that you must collect data as minimally as possible. You should not collect personal data that you do not need, right? So you just take for an example, you're going to the bank and the bank is asking you for maybe they're asking you for maybe your political party or something very strange. They're asking you for an information that's not related. Maybe if they ask for your name, your email address, your BVN, your NIN, but they cannot be asking you for maybe when you were married or something like that, or things like that. So it has to be minimal accuracy. You must ensure that the personal data that is processed is accurate, and which is why one of your rights as a data subject, which we would get there, is the fact that you have the opportunity to correct any data that is not accurate. You have storage limitations. Processors or controllers are expected to store your data for a certain period of time. You have integrity and confidentiality. Your data must always be kept confidential. So these are some of the rights that you have as a data subject. So right of access, you should be able to access your data at any time. Right of erasure, where there is a mistake, you should be able to request that it be corrected. Right to rectifications, quite similar. Right to restrict data processing. Of course, you can at any point in time request such restrictions from the data controllers. Right to object to such processing, right? If you see that maybe you are getting unwarranted emails or whatever, and you note that you had earlier perhaps submitted this information to a provider, you can and then you just get you perhaps be getting unwanted notifications, you can actually request the data process or object to it that this is unwarranted, and you don't want it to continue, and that you don't like it. Right to lodge a complaint with your regulator. Of course, where there is a data breach, you can lodge a complaint with the regulator. I think there is a an inquiry portion on the regulator's website. Right not to be subjected to automated decision making, right to data portability, right to withdraw your consent. You can, if you give your consent, say by 502, and you say, oh, I don't want them to, maybe a provider to process it, you can 503, you can reach out to them and say that you are withdrawing your consent is very permissible. So what are the emerging challenges that we see? We're talking about technology, we're talking about data. What are the emerging challenges that we see in rapidly evolving technology? First, artificial intelligence. I think that is really the big elephant in the room. AI, and it is really disrupting what we do within this landscape. So for an example, questions like, who is responsible when AI makes a harmful decision? Questions like, how much surveillance is too much surveillance, right? Questions like, cross-border data transfers. Can Nigerians' personal data be stored outside Nigeria? Are these permissible? How should minors information be protected online? The issue of digital identity and processing of children's data, it's always a big key concern, right? Was harmful dissemination of information. How should governments balance innovation and privacy, right? For want of time, I would come back to it so I don't dwell too much on this. So I'll just quickly run through the other information and come back to this. So what are certain key compliance obligations for organizations? And please, moderator, please just guide me and let me know when I'm perhaps out of time.
Yes, you have 5 more minutes.
Yeah, so for the key compliance, as organizations, right, as businesses, what are some obligations that you need to put in place? Appointment of a DPO, right? The Data Protection Act and the GATE, right, provides that you have to appoint a DPO to advise your organization. Filing of annual data protection returns. Organizations that fall within certain categories of DCPMIs, right? Due to want of time, I may not be able to speak extensively on this, but I will just put in a portion that speaks to it in this slide for the sake of people that would want to look at it after it's been shared. So certain categories are required to file their audit compliance return. This is very, 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 very important on or before the 31st of March every year. Data protection sensitization. I think this is something that the regulator is big on. You see most companies and organizations, do and are also encouraged to do. Registration of data controllers and data processors of major importance. I've spoken to this and I've said I would also put it here. So certain categories of organizations that fall within certain threshold are required to register. Data privacy impact assessment. Typically, companies are required to conduct an impact assessment where they are processing high risk data, and the law provides in the gate provides for certain processing that would constitute high risk, right? So moving on, maintaining appropriate policy. So of course, there are certain policies and processes that should be put in place: your privacy policy, your cookies, your incident response plan, your data protection policy, and so on. Functional internal remediation. Every organization must maintain a functional internal remediation to address any breach that may occur, right, while carrying on its business. Third party compliance. Of course, businesses that engage in third party to provide services or to enable their services must ensure that those third party are also compliant with data privacy laws, right? And one key thing that has to be put in place is what we call third-party processing agreement, cybersecurity and data protection. Of course, the NDPA mandates of data controllers and processors to implement what you call technical and organizational measures to ensure the security, integrity, and confidentiality of information that they process. Moving on, the theme of this webinar talks about transnational law. I mean, building transnational law. What are the opportunities for lawyers even beyond Nigeria? What are some of these opportunities within this space? This space is so broad. I mean, even though it's we see that the data protection space is constantly, growing and all of that, but there are key areas and there are opportunities for every lawyer, both within Nigeria and outside Nigeria, some of which has been listed here for you. Sometimes even these take different terms or terminology, so you can also do your research for some, for some evolving roles within this ecosystem. Looking ahead, what's the future for us? What are the areas that we would see a surge or a growth as we move forward? Artificial intelligence, of course, that is number one. Artificial intelligence has come to stay, right? It would not take away your job. It would only enable your, roles and responsibility for lawyers that stay abreast within the game. Digital identity, quantum computing, biometric surveillance, cross-border data governance, digital health records, cloud computing, smart cities, etc. And I've said here that legal profession must anticipate this development. So these developments are not supposed to scare us, right? Which is why we have some of these webinars to prepare our minds so that when it comes, we are not left behind, right? We must anticipate them, we must prepare for them. We should not react, be scared of them or react to them when it comes. In conclusion, I've said technology will continue to evolve, data will continue to grow, regulation will continue to adapt. The future belongs to lawyers who understand not only the law, but also the technologies shaping the societies the law seeks to govern. So thank you for listening.
Thank you very much for that very detailed conversation and discussion on technology, data, and emerging regulations. Thank you so much, Ms. Uchechi. That was really wonderful. Well done. Ladies and gentlemen, at this point in time, we would have 5 minutes for question and answer before we move quickly into the next session. If you have any questions, let me check the chat box. I can't see any questions. But before that, can we just give a virtual round of applause for that fantastic presentation? Well done. Well done, Mr. Chichi. So do we have any questions? Are we on the call? Have we been listening? Do we have any questions? Thank you. Any questions? Okay. So I don't think we have any questions. Maybe she had done more than justice to the conversation. However, if there are questions, of course, we would, Mr. Chichi is still on the call. Maybe after you've listened to the next speaker, your question arises that overlap with her presentation, please feel free to ask your questions. And just as I announced before Mr. Chichi's session, for the lawyers on the call, please, for your CPD point certificates, kindly provide your name, your email, your branch, and your Supreme Court number in the chat box so that that certificate can be sent across to you after the webinar. So ladies and gentlemen, now that we have heard from Mr. Chichi, we're going to move on to the next speaker, Mr. Overlen, who is a lawyer practicing and, well, some sort of an expert in international trade and competition. And today he's going to be speaking to us on international business, trade and investment law. You know, we're talking about transnational practice here, the way you can build your legal career from Nigeria to the global stage. So now that we've heard about data and why and how we can, you know, harness data, let us now hear about international business, trade, and investment. What do we understand by this, and how can we make use of the opportunities available in this space? So, Mr. Ovo, are you there with us? Yes, I can
Yeah.
see he's there.
Yes.
Welcome. You have 20 minutes and the floor is yours. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you, Victoria.
You're welcome.
So my name is Ovole, but you can call me Ovi for the purposes of this conversation. I don't have a slide because I try as much as possible to try to make conversations as conversational as possible. Because from my own experience, these things are more relatable. I also don't like to call myself an expert because every day we learn. So for me, it's just I do not, but I will give you an example of my own experience in this field on how, just as a theme of the webinar, how to build a legal career, a T-shaped legal career. So in the Nigerian sense of the word, the way we use the word practice, I do not practice again as a lawyer. Sometimes I joke people, I tell them I'm a retired lawyer these days. That's what I tell them. But that is on the lighter note. So what is international trade, and how do you build a T-shaped legal practice in this area? So for me, I work in international trade. International trade focuses on the public international law and governmental regulations that govern commerce between nations. So this is what you call it, where the World Trade Organization comes in. So the rules that govern trade between nations, there are rules that govern it. You might not see them. So when you are shipping, these days, I'm sure with the advent of social media, with the previous speaker has covered very creditably. And all of us, many of us are on the internet. You've seen a lot of buzz about shipping of, more often than not, I think this content creator, very dark man, has gone to China at least 4 or 5 times in the last 5 months or so, and has said, oh, we are shipping this, we are doing this, we are bringing this. If you want this, you can contact us. I don't know, am I audible? Am I audible?
Yes, Mr.
Okay.
We can hear you.
If I'm speaking too fast, you can please just tell me to reduce
Okay, no problem.
So you see very dark man say, oh, I have an office in China. But the rules that govern the movement of that, whatever is bought in China or the US or wherever you buy it from, and bring them to you in Nigeria, those rules are governed by international trade rules. And that is where I've worked in the last 7 years of my life. So the work I do covers tariffs and non-tariff measures, sanctions, trade disputes, and government regulations. There's also some parts of anti-dumping duties, subsidies, import restrictions, and treaty negotiations and treaty violations. So this is what I've done for the last 7 years of my life. But it's also important to distinguish between this and what a maritime lawyer is, because it's more often than not you hear maritime lawyers. So maritime lawyers focus on the private and commercial law, which would govern the physical transportation of goods and people by sea. So it's also important to distinguish both of them. So to give you an example into my own background, and I think it's quite important because I think it's more often than not, majority of us here will be lawyers. I never wanted to become a lawyer. It wasn't like I hear a lot of people say, oh, I dreamt to become a lawyer. It was never something that I thought I would become a lawyer. As a matter of fact, I thought I was going to become a medical doctor. But I think 2 years getting to secondary school, preparing to write WAEC, I woke up one morning, didn't think I liked the science courses, dropped physics and chemistry, and then picked up literature and government to be able to write that in my WAEC and my JAM exams. And obviously, I haven't told my father that I was going to become a doctor. The only way for him to accept another art course in his house was telling him, oh, the next precious profession was to become a lawyer. So ultimately became a lawyer. But I grew up in Benin City. I wouldn't say I went to University of Benin. I did not have I would say, the exposure that a lot of younger people have these days, where I see younger people have going on internships in the course of holidays and whatnot, which is, I think, is very commendable and creditable. In my own case, I thought that growing up in Benin, my greatest ambition of studying law was to open a law firm where my wig can go and go to court. And there's nothing wrong in that. There's nothing wrong. That's the foundation of the profession. So for me, that was it. But when I went to the Nigerian Law School, I ran into some of my colleagues and I was like, I went for an internship here. I did this here. What are these people talking about? I did it. For the life of me, they could have been speaking Swahili because I didn't understand what they were talking about. So for me, I said, okay, it was time for, so I had colleagues when we were in the law school, who had already done their masters, who had come back, who was, I'm going to specialize in intellectual property law, I'm going to do this, I'm going to do that. And this was me, little old me, who was just like, I'm going to wear my wig and go and practice law. It was quite strange to me. So I had to start calibrating how to build my own career, because I was already behind these people, whether you like it or not. These people had some more exposure. What you don't know, you don't know. So knowledge is power, as they say. So in the course of my own career, went back to Benin, tried to practice law, and I got some very big and lucky breaks, in the sense that, so it's not, some of them are not things that I say, they were plots. But at the beginning, when the African Continental Free Trade Area Agreement started being negotiated, I picked up an interest in it, because I used to hear it on television, NTA, in the mornings, the morning show on NTA, Good Morning on NTA. This was in 2018. Picked up an interest in it, and ultimately got offered a job in a then nascent government agency, which is called the Nigerian Office for Trade Negotiations, who were saddled with the responsibility of negotiating the African Continental Free Trade Area Agreement. In that regard, I had first mover advantage because I was in the office when the agreement was being negotiated. I was maybe 3 years post-call at that time. Got into the office, didn't know anything about trade, but had some experts who had been brought from outside the country. And one of them took me under her wings and said, and this is, if there's anything I'm going to say to you that you should take from today, is that anything that is to be learned is in a book. You don't need to, you need a master's degree or if you can afford a master's degree, please go for it. But you don't need to say, I need if I don't have a master's degree in this, or I've not done a training in this, I cannot practice in this. Everything is in a book. Everything is in a book. There are a lot of free resources on the internet today, which will give you a foundation. They might not give you the in-depth knowledge, but they give you a foundation of, and if you're interested, you can then build on knowledge and spend your money to buy books and other things you would need in developing yourself in that area. So my colleague took me under her wings, introduced me to a couple of books, and set for me a 5-year timeline. I said, this was in 2020, and told me, in 5 years' time, I want you to be in an international organization. So I had a mentor and I had books. I think it's very important to take this into account. I had a mentor and I had books. So I had somebody who, when I didn't understand the concepts, called me, put me under her wing, and said, explain them to me in layman's language. So when I talk about the Singapore issues today, I talk about tariff and non-tariff measures, and talk about tariff barriers. I don't want to bore you with technicalities of it. I'm trying to tell you how to build a T-shaped legal career. I'm not going to, because some of trade terminologies can get very, very boring and very, very intense. And I want to just try to focus within the time, 20 minutes I have, to try to tell you learn from my own experience and how you can do yours too. So in 2022, I applied to be a young professional at the World Trade Organization in Geneva, Switzerland. I made it to interview stage, didn't get it. 2023, I did the same thing. Made it to interview stage, didn't get in. In 2024, did the same application process and ultimately got into to work at the World Trade Organization as a young professional in Geneva. So I moved to Geneva last year, in Switzerland. For me, that was a validation of everything I had done in my life. Remember, this is a boy who grew up in Benin, who didn't know what international trade was, who only had first mover advantage because somebody took a chance on him because he had an interest in this thing. Another person mentored him. So for me, those were the two things that moved me. I had a lucky break, which I called the unseen hand of God in my life, and somebody who took a chance on me. So last year I moved to Geneva, Switzerland. I worked at the World Trade Organization as a young professional, working in the competition policy and intellectual property division of the World Trade Organization. So trade rules comprise also international intellectual property, competition law, tariff and non-tariff measures. But I don't want to talk about it because I know the next speaker will talk about intellectual property law, and I might talk to you about international rules of international instruments for intellectual property law. So I'm not going to do this. But how did I get to competition policy specifically? While we were negotiating the African Continental Free Trade Area in Nigeria, the office I worked was negotiating office. I worked in the group where we were working on intellectual property and competition policy. Nobody was willing to do competition policy because it was new. Nigeria had just passed her Federal Competition and Consumer Protection Act, the FCCPA, in 2018. So it was new. And Nigeria, but we had to negotiate a competition policy protocol for the African Continental Free Trade Agreement. It had to be done. It was the framework agreement. And negotiations were about to begin in earnest. So who was to do it? This mentor of mine said, Ovi, come here. Go and do competition policy. Leave intellectual property alone. Why? Because I already had a background in intellectual property in my master's degree. But she said, competition policy is newer, and you might have first mover advantage here again. But that is how, at the age of 27, I was in the room with negotiators working on the African Continental Free Trade Area Agreement, negotiating on behalf of Nigeria, the competition policy protocol for Nigeria. It was this experience that I got that moved me, that got me accepted at the WTO in Geneva as a young professional, and ultimately shaped the course of my life and shaped the course of my career. I say this because when we are in Nigeria, and if you are like me, I don't know how many of you, I think many of you are far more educated and far more brilliant and far more special than me. There's nothing special about me. I keep on making that point. I'm not the most brilliant person. I'm not the most focused person. I'm not the most hardworking person. But a lot of things I have gotten because I had knowledge, I was lucky, which is I call the unseen hand of God, and I had first mover advantage. So the last speaker before us make the point and said in the topic she covered about which was data protection and the ensuing surrounding areas. She said there's a wide scope to explore. But a lot of people, and I understand it because it's difficult to leave your comfort zone. A lot of people want to do the traditional methods of practice, which and it's not like I repeat, there's nothing wrong in it. People must do it. People must do it. But there's a lot of this legal degree that you hold. I say legal degree because I assume everybody here is a lawyer because the name of this is Oba Lawyers Association. And a lot of this legal degree you hold is the most versatile degree. I keep on telling people, you can use to do a lot of things in this world, and it easily transcends. So at the moment, I'm switching to working in competition policy and working in international trade. These are not things I learned from the four walls of any classroom in Nigeria. They were things I picked up along the way through books, through exposure, and through just having people who guided me and guided me on this path in life. I think it's important for anybody, if you take anything from his today. One, make sure, expand your tentacles and see what is there. You might just fall in love in an area you've never heard of before. And you have first mover advantage, and you will do a lot of things, and you'll be able to do exploits from little places. I also think that it's important that it's also important that you grab any opportunity that comes for you, even when you think you're not ready and you're not prepared. You can learn on the job. Nobody expects you to have knowledge. I think it was one of the favorite things from one of my lecturers that said, "God forbid I know the law. A good lawyer only knows where to find the laws. Not so God forbid you know the laws. So where do you find the laws? In books, on the pages of books, on the pages of articles and whatnot. Just be curious. Make sure your mind is it's like a sponge, willing to soak up everything that is out there. And I'll say this because when I was in 100 level, the next speaker who is going to speak, Mr. Senator, used to come and teach me tutorials. In fact, I may not remember me, but I knew him. He was at the University of Benin. He used to take us tutorials. One of the people that really inspired us then as a young, then in 2018, he came back to Benin and could come and do such a webinar similar like this. He was invited by the Young Lawyers Forum in Benin to do a webinar similar like this, but it was a physical conference. And he did intellectual property law again. Another person did tax law, and a lady, Beverly, did sports law. It was that webinar, something like this, that exploded my mind to make me explore different areas. And that's how I ultimately ended up in trade today. So I think that ultimately the Nigerian lawyer was learned to, because every year we call 10,000 people to bar. Last week we called, I think, another 5,000. So the legal market, the market for litigation may be saturated, but the market for other services like international trade, data protection, which the previous speaker had done, and intellectual property, which the next speaker will do, are still looking for first movers and people who are willing and able to put in the work to develop these areas in Nigeria. And I think that one of the things you can get is broadening your minds and taking those things on board. But I don't want to bore you with too much. I want you to be more interactive. So this is just me giving you my own little nuggets and my own personal experience and life career journey on how this is. If you have any other questions, you can feel free to ask me. Thank you, Victoria. I think this is what I want to say for now. If any of the other questions, I'm willing and happy to go to the end to take them. Hello. Victoria, are you still there? Can you hear me?
Yes, I can. We can hear you, sir.
Okay. I was waiting for a moderator, but if anybody has questions, I don't think maybe she's dropped off. If anybody has questions, I'm happy to take them. If not, maybe I will hand over the floor to the next panelist. Okay, I think nobody has questions, so maybe next panelist can take over from here. But I'll wait to the end. If anybody has questions, then I'll take. I'm happy to take it from there.
Well, thank you very much. Ovi, as you like to call yourself, or you like to be called. It's interesting seeing how cross-border affairs continue to shape international law and practice. I agree with you that competition policy continues to put the boundaries around international transactions, commerce, intellectual property, and the rest of that. And I'd like to just commend your work in this regard. I am sure that by the time Victoria comes back on board to lead this session, she will be able to ask, or on behalf of the viewers or audience here access to not a bit. I'm not sure we might completely.
I think you were coming in and out. I'm not quite sure what I got the last part.
Oh, sorry. I was saying that I'm sure by the time Victoria comes back, she might have questions to ask on behalf of the participants here.
Yes. Okay. Thank you. But maybe just for the sake of time, maybe you can just go ahead and she comes and does everything.
Okay.
Thank you.
All right then. I will do just that. So I hope everyone can see my screen.
Hello, Mr. Senator. Good afternoon. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can.
Yes, I sincerely apologize to you and Mr. Overland. The network, it's raining quite heavily here in Port Harcourt. So the network got me logged off for a couple of minutes. Hello?
Yes, that's fine. We understand.
Yes. So I do apologize. So thank you. Thank you very much, Mr. Overland. I think you had started your presentation. I'm not sure. But before you do start, let me do what is needful. I don't know if there were any questions while I got logged off the call. None. Okay. So in that case, ladies and gentlemen, please permit me to thank Mr. Over for that wonderful presentation. I was following all through, and I really hope to join him in working for the World Trade Organization too. And thank you so much, Mr. Ovo. So now we're going to be hearing from Mr. Senator Hayen, who is the lead partner at Infusion Lawyers. He's going to be speaking on intellectual property, digital economy law. He's going to be giving us a lot of information on how to protect your intellectual property, the niche how you can create a career for yourself as a T-shaped lawyer in that particular area. So the floor is yours, Mr. Senator. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Victoria. It's a pleasure to be here and always a privilege to speak to colleagues, both senior colleagues, young colleagues, and as well the future colleagues. I understand that there might be one or two law students in the room as well. My name is Cesar Nkene. If you're wondering if that's a title of one of your lawmakers, no, it's not. So in case you're one of the kidnappers in the room, too bad. I am just an ordinary man like you. All right. So I will be speaking about the T-shaped lawyer from the point of view of intellectual property and digital economy. This is where my background has been over the years. I have led a law firm called Infusion Lawyers in the last last 9 years. And in the course of that, I have worked across various practices of intellectual property, startups, technology, and the rest of that. And I've also served in advisory capacity across various sections, whether it's intellectual property, World IP, World Intellectual Property Organization, helping to get SME, especially those in the ICT sector started. Also currently advising the central bank on stablecoin regulation and adoption, which is part of the emerging technology that Chichi was talking about. I have also served as cybersecurity and data privacy consultant Edo State governments. And you can see on the screen other volunteer roles that I've served. Why have I started this way? I needed to appreciate how law now intersects with so many other things. And the way that you can build value for yourself is not to remain an I lawyer or I-shaped lawyer. You have to become very, very deep in legal expertise. That's all we were taught in law school, in the faculty of law. You keep deepening your high. And so there are two ways, there are two results you get when you deepen your high. You are stronger at the roots. You know, imagine a tree. You are stronger at the roots in terms of legal expertise. You are deeply rooted, which is fantastic. The other result is that you will become an Iroko tree as well. You keep growing up, you know, keep growing in terms of your reach skyward. That is also fantastic. It's good for any professional to deepen legal expertise, but where it really matters is where the law now intersects with other sectors. And that's why you need to be a T-shaped lawyer. I first talked about being a T-shaped lawyer long ago. I was a member of the Continuing Legal Education Committee of the Young Lawyers Forum back in 2015, the Federal branch precisely, when I spoke about the need to be T-shaped lawyers. And I decided that I was going to do this myself as well. So I was quite intentional about what I wanted to do very, very early on, which reinforces the point that I'm going to be making later, that if you want to build a successful practice as a lawyer or career, you have to be intentional. Yeah, there can be accidental politicians, there can be accidental civil servants, but you can't be an accidental lawyer. You have to be very, very intentional. So as you see on the screen, you see where you have the breadth. That matters a lot. Yes, you can work on the depth, the screen, but you need to have multidisciplinary exposure. You don't have started in this way. That's intellectual property, and so that you see how that blends finally into the intellectual property and digital economy role. So enough about the depth that we've got. Fantastic, keep building it, but we still now need to build a breadth of expertise, or not really expertise, knowledge, exposure around technology, around business, around finance, around data, design, and communications. You have to build all that. Some of you might be wondering why I have that background. I have been working very closely with a web manager or web developer on one of the products that our law firm will be launching soon. And it's been, if you know web designers very well, they like to work a bit in the dark. So I'll have to excuse him so that I can continue this lecture or presentation. So this is what we've got. So go deep, but you need to earn your authority. So this is how the ladder looks like, or this looks like. You become an authority, you become an expert, you become proficient, you become competent, you become aware. Now, where you need to be an authority without any question is your area of law. So I haven't said don't dig into the law, keep digging it, but spread out. So imagine this as a pyramid. You would have authority be the sharpest of the triangle, but at the bottom is more of awareness across board. So when a client of yours, this will be oil and gas industry, or finance industry, or edutech industry, you would have awareness. You won't be the one in the room who is an ignoramus. You know, that's why we're called learned, right? We're learned not because we know so much law. It is also because we are assumed to have multidisciplinary awareness and exposure across all other sectors or fields of knowledge, whether it's physics, that an OB was running away from in class, or it's mathematics that high ranking from in class, etc. And I think it doesn't be very soon, except when I have to count my money. So, so that's the language you have to speak. You have to speak the language of technology, of business. Just look at the screen right now. You are expected to be literate in these areas as a T-shaped lawyer. That way, whatever practice group in your firm, or even in your in the departments of your organization, you will not feel uncomfortable. You will not feel like the hard one out. And please do not make any excuse that you're a lawyer, you don't know that. No, you have to understand, or at least have awareness of what other teams are doing, whether it's the web team that I'm playing right now, before we start this lecture or presentation, or design, policy regulations, and the rest of that. It's very key. Now, I think we've come to why should you be a teaching lawyer now? I wanted to be a teaching lawyer over 15 years ago. And I think I have become that in the last 14 years of my practice as a lawyer. So for you, why now? Technology is rewriting everything, like Chichi was saying. I can't see that enough. All the emerging technologies, from AI to blockchain to data, big data, IoT, it has changed everything. And so you have to be a T-shaped lawyer now. And the rest of them who afford to be I-shaped lawyer. You can't afford to be an I-shaped lawyer in this generation. You have to be a T-shaped lawyer. Value these at intersections. I always tell guys in my team back in the trend that the biggest value you bring to the team is not where you are personally or you found as a lawyer. It is when you go with other cases. It's when you are outside of your, I would say, box. So that's where the intersection is, where you can find a place where law and physics meets. That is business value. Where you can find a place where law and finance meets business value. If you keep looking for law and law, you will be stunted in your growth as a lawyer. You need to look for ways to connect the dots between what you do, where you are, and where, say, the other sectors are. And those will, they, of course, be your clients. So you see how this shape is. So they're all trained in specialists in law. Fantastic. At some point, you have to be aware and have multidisciplinary exposure, which makes you a generalist. These two can't stand or work separately. They have to go together. And that's where the team comes in. Now, I'll use the rest of my time to then talk about how intellectual property and the economy come in around today. Last Thursday, I was speaking to lawyers and sports practitioners about intellectual property in sports. And one of the key things I reinforced was that everything you see in sports today is intellectual property, the beginning and the end of it. Everything you see, the World Cup going on right now, the FIFA logo, you can't imagine how much the FIFA World Cup logo is worth today. Right. So whatever you see, a sports club, a jersey, a merchandise, it's all IP. The name of a club, the name of a player, you talk about image rights, it's IP. Now, in the digital economy, you will see these things I've listed on screen, whether it's software in the IT or ICT sector or finance sector or fintech, apps running everything. There's hardly anything you can do today without apps, whether web-based or mobile-based. So platforms, or what some people call platformization, is key today. Data is running everything. The way that oil used to run the economy, data now runs the economy. And data is what marries AI and blockchain. All blockchain tries to secure data cryptographically, but in a way that is very advanced in terms of security. What it does in AI is that AI trains on data to be able to provide value faster, more accurately, and the rest of it. So data is king, not just content anymore. Anyone can now get content. Anyone can go to Gemini or ChatGPT, put in anything and just, you've got content, but it's way beyond that. I already talked about, mentioned blockchain a bit. I will not go into these things because we don't have enough time, but just understand that you should not allow yourself to be bamboozled by any lawyer or non-lawyer experts when they mention certain things in the room. Things like blockchain, token, virtual assets, anonymization, pseudonymization, they shouldn't scare you. They are simpler than you think. If you understand things from the level of where you are to the next level, the best way I explain blockchain to people who don't understand it is think of blockchain as the third generation of the internet. In the fourth generation of the internet, you could do what? You could go to a certain website and read about something. That was the fourth generation of the blockchain. There were old websites back then. But you couldn't interact with it. You couldn't have a Zoom call. You couldn't do social media, Facebook, WhatsApp. That was fourth generation. Second generation brought Facebook, brought interaction. So for the first time, you could now interact with anybody from anywhere in the world. That was second generation of the internet. But what that generation of the internet has done is that it duplicates data, content, IP, assets at the twinkle of an eye without any security. So I could love, say, Obi has written about international law or commercial or competition policy. I can buy Obi's book online, download it, and share it in a WhatsApp group of 50 people. None of those 50 people paid 1 naira or 1 kobo to Obi to have access to that book. That is the crisis that the second generation of the internet has brought upon us. It brought upon us access without protection. So it's what we have today is a hotbed of infringements of IP. Back in university, when I was doing my dissertation as a final year student, the title of my work or dissertation was Copyrights in Nigeria, the past, copyrights in Nigeria, the past, present, and the future from the high of the digital economy. So you see, I'm not speaking about this by chance. That was way over 15, 16 years ago. So fintech, payment, stable coins, AI-driven creator content, very interesting in your areas. Everything I've told you now, there is IP running through almost everything there. IP is everywhere. Now, IP is the currency of the economy. I've said that already. So when you think about the intangibles, you think about the invaluable. IP, you can't touch it, you can't, but you know IP when you see one. Whether it's a name, whether it's an original content in a book, whether it's a trademark of a Barcelona football club or an NBA club or some other sports that you love, licensing, patents, trade secrets, big time. Nigeria doesn't have any trade secrets legislation, so we don't understand trade secrets as they should. In other economies like China, US, Canada, trade secrets is now bigger than, to some extent, even patents. Why? Because these days, it will be very difficult for you to protect or patent things that are, software-driven or data-driven. But trade secrets can help you protect it. In the UK, they have a trade secret legislation that enables you to also register trade secrets, where you register patents and trademarks and all that. But in places like Nigeria and other countries in the developing world, they do not. You have to get the other party to sign a contract. At the absence of a contract, the trade secrets, there's nothing secretive about it. So where IP meets the digital economy, look at the stack we've got in front of us in the screen. You see AI, blockchain, data pricing, fintech payment, data content, software, and startups and scale-ups. There's nothing that I have mentioned right now on the screen that I do not play in as a lawyer. And you could wake me up any day or in my dreams or in my sleep, and I can process any of these anytime. So as an IP lawyer or as a lawyer or as a T-shaped lawyer, you can't afford to be too narrow. You can't afford to, okay, you love AI and then you just pay on AI only. You can't afford to do that. You have to continue spreading across board because that is where the real value is. AI is not for AI's sake. AI and startups will intersect. AI and brands and will intersect. Data privacy and creators' consent will intersect. Is the beauty of a T-shaped lawyer in a digital economy. It's boundless. What you need to do is what lawyers call admin. So I would say that the opportunities are as wide or as small as your imagination. Wherever your imagination can take you today, you can get there. Only if you can think about it first. The way I love to see it is this. Whenever you have something in mind, whether it's a new business line, whether it's a sector you want to introduce at your firm, whether it's a client you want to pitch to, the journey starts from imagination, not knowledge. You have to imagine the big picture first. This is what I would like to achieve in 2030. 2030 is in the trick of an eye without your imagination. How about instant use the imagination, not knowledge? Once you have imagined 2030 and what you want to do as an IP lawyer or T-shaped lawyer in 2030, then start taking the disciplined, hard-working, grueling work backwards. So from 2030, you come back to 2029, 2028, 2027, 2026, July 2026. Now you're facing the reality. You then realize that you have to then start putting details, the big picture you're seeing 4 years from now. I saw the big picture of Senator becoming an IT-shaped and a T-shaped lawyer long ago. And I took steps backwards to then take myself back to what I imagined. And it's a continuous journey. I haven't said I have gotten to where I want to get to. It's a journey. And that's what I think every lawyer in the house or future lawyer or non-lawyer has to also realize. It's a journey. Career is a journey. Some people will get it very right and successful later on. Some people will get it right very early. Your journey is not anyone's journey. Your journey is yours because you are the only kind of person anywhere in this over 8 billion populated world. There's no one like you. So you can't follow my formula. But if you understand your own metrics, you can then understand how to shape your own T-shaped structure as a lawyer. So read the technology, structure the IP and the token, speak every language, and turn legal insights into value. Now, Africa Digital Decade needs T-shaped lawyers. So if you're wondering where is it for me? Where is there any opportunity here? Long ago, about 7 years ago, I was in a very big program in Lagos, and a very senior lawyer, a partner in one of the biggest law firms in the country, seeing what I do as a lawyer. And I mentioned the areas that I was core in. I also mentioned intellectual property. And then he laughed when I mentioned intellectual property. He said, intellectual property, I don't know who makes money from that in this country. It's just academic. And a lot of people just do it advocacy, education. Nobody makes money from it. Was I surprised that one of the biggest law firms, a partner, said that? I was not surprised. I saw these things very early on, as far back as 2005, when I was admitted into the University of Benin studying law. I saw and I knew and I could see very clearly that as far as Nigeria, the economy was concerned, there was lack of appreciation of what IP really is, because people practice IP for IP's sake. You hardly find people do IP for business sake. When you move IP away from education and practice to IP for business, for trade, for commerce, that's where the value is. So if you're an IP lawyer today, go beyond telling your client, register your IP. Once they register the IP, what's the next thing? You're looking for the next client to register IP, and then you complain that IP doesn't bring money. You have to think about monetization. That's why value is everything. If you can't convince your clients or potential clients that IP will bring something to their business margin or profits, you are joking. No one is going to give you money to go and register trademarks or patents, only for you to move on after them. You have to already have what is called an IP, what would I call it, design on monetization, so that the journey starts from registration, but that is the most basic, crude, primary step to take. The more advanced steps to take, you have to get there as well. And that's where monetization is at the end of it. So all these things, how do I bring value to the virtual asset and Web3 sector? You're not sitting back waiting for Binance to come give you a job. You are doing something that Binance will find valuable, and then only see you whenever they need someone to come up. My firm, Infusion Lawyers, we work with Binance as far back as 2018, 2019, right? And until very, very, very recently, in 2024, when there were regulatory issues with Binance, with the federal government over the devaluation of the Naira, the matter is in court. We're not the ones handling the matter in court, by the way. Binance was there. Today, we still advise a number of global platforms in that sector. Startups as well. Startups, think about value. Think about value. One of the things we're building today, Victoria, if I'm out of time, please let me know. One of the things we're building in our firm.
Yes, you have 5 more minutes, sir.
Fantastic. I'll switch on to the questions in 2 minutes. One of the things we were building, and that is why I'm still here in the room with the web designer here. We decided that rather than waiting for demand, we will control supply. That's one of the things you can do as a lawyer who is in business. You can't wait for demand to come. People knock on the door and say, Victoria, we need this. You have to be a Victoria or an Ovi or an Ichechi or a senator that also control supply. How do I mean? We now want to launch a platform called Pinpoints, where we want to help startups and SME de-risk their enterprises so that it will be easier for them to get funded. So we're not saying we will give you funders. We're saying we will make you more attractable to funders. What have we done? By the time we launch that platform, before our 10th anniversary, April next year, we would have been able to control supply, demand rather, because there's this platform, people will ask questions. And at the end of the day, they will need a lawyer. A lawyer doesn't start conversations. Lawyers are always at the end of the value chain. So it's why, as an IT or an IT lawyer, you could get frustrated waiting for demand. You have to get involved and control supply. Policy, regulations, key areas you have to get involved in. Policy is one of my biggest areas today. I'm always in policy, always speaking to regulators, always speaking to government agencies about one or two things, whether it's in IT sector, whether it's in blockchain, whether it's in finance. I'm always speaking. Even when there's no platform, I create the platform. I am the founding chair of trustee of the Virtual Asset Service Providers Association. Did I make the association? No, I created it because there was no platform. And because I created it, NFIU, so how can we work together? That is how today's lawyers think. You can't wait for the market to come to you. You have to create the market. Practical tips, and I think this will help you use the number of questions you might have. For the law student, pick a domain and fall in love with it. I fell in love. I don't know about others. If you don't fall in love with a domain, it will be very difficult for you to build sustained interest in that thing. But once that thing doesn't pay you, you move to the next thing. And that is what kills careers. So young people want to make it early and get out of there. Stay there, fall in love with it, deepen it, create value in it, and something next will happen, right? So take a tech, business, or finance course. It doesn't have to be always be law. You can take business, finance courses. You can build projects. I'm building a lot of projects at the moment. A lot of my people are saying, so we've got quite a number. Very soon, we'll release some of these projects. You have to build projects and then follow the digital economy daily. Subscribe to newsletters, magazines, websites. They are everywhere. Subscribe to them, whether it's Flutterwave you are following, whether it's Paystar, whether it's Stripe, whether anything, just follow them. Young lawyers, go deep first. Go deep. So focus on the vertical, which is the eye. You're either getting stronger at the roots or going taller at the top, but keep deepening vertically and then focus on the adjacent as well. What are you intersecting? What are you intersecting as you grow as an local tree over the year? Then learn client business, speak client language. Ask that you want to join their meetings. Don't wait till they tell you, oh, something has gone wrong, fire brigade, come and put it off. We cannot become or remain fire brigades. A T-shaped lawyer is not a fire brigade. A T-shaped lawyer is a risk manager. You would already be in the room before anything goes wrong. That is the value of a T-shaped lawyer. We can't sit back and wait for litigation. Litigation means something has gone wrong. And if you gain the law firm engaged by these people, and then they want you to do litigation, it means that somewhere your non-litigation practice failed at some point. So litigation, jumping into litigation, if you're the one managing the same clients, it's a red flag. You have to see how to reduce litigation and focus on transactions. Learn the client business, I said, right? Speak, build strong brand. I started building a strong brand long ago. The first job I got was with Assizes Law Firm, the tax, the IP law firm in Lagos by Chinua Suzy, my very fantastic mentor in legal writing. I got an invitation to be a guest in Lagos in 2012. I was just in Kwara State on youth service. He reached out and said, Senator, I love how you write. I want you to be my guest in the next legal writing workshop in Ikeja. I asked my supervisor to let me go, and they let me go. I traveled into Lagos, and immediately after my service, I was offered a job. Chinua never saw my CV. He didn't know if I had a first class or a third class. He just knew this is value coming in. Of course, I worked for him till 2017 before I started my law firm. Senior lawyer, institutionalize your debt. There's not enough for you to know. And this is one frustration with senior lawyers and law firms. You know, yes, we know you know, but you have to institutionalize your debt. Because if that debt goes with you, that law firm is going away. So you have to turn it to an institution, not just I'm principal of this law firm. Lead multidisciplinary collaborations. It's beyond law. Get involved in IT and the rest of that. Mentor and sponsor T-shaped talents like me. Sponsor me, mentor me, and help shape policy and standards. So this is how your roadmap should be. I'm leaving you with this one. Your roadmap should be the anchor, the hyacinth I talked about, translate the commercial value, collaborate across board, and then you can lead and build tech. Key takeaways: debt makes you credible. Value lives at the intersection. Don't forget the intersection. That's where the money lives. The digital economy runs on IP. Everything you see around you is IP. The best time to start wasn't yesterday. It doesn't have to be tomorrow. It is today. So we did the broad, the in this tangible. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Mr. Senator. That was really, really enlightening. And I mean, one key word for me, value lives at the intersection. Don't just wait for demand. Try to control supply. Those were deep, profound words that I'm certain that our guest on the call really appreciate. So please, can we give a virtual round of applause to Mr. Senator, Mr. Overland, and Ms. Uchechi for an amazing session, for just pouring and pouring and pouring and doing fantastic work. I mean, you can tell from the applauses that you're getting that this has been a fantastic session for everyone on the call. And I really want to appreciate our speakers for honoring the call and taking out time to, prepare their slides out of their very busy schedule, because you're talking about lawyers and, people who are really busy. And on that note, Ms. Uchechi has sent her apologies. She had to drop off the call to attend to an urgent work matter, but she sends her regards. And if you have any questions for her, do well to send them across. And I'm certain that while she's sending the slides, the answers to your questions will be sent across. So our dear participants, if you have any questions, this is the time to ask. We have barely 10 minutes to call this conversation a wrap. So if you have any question in the next 2 minutes, this is the time you can ask all your questions. How can I carve my niche? What should I do? How does mentorship help? Or how can I find my helper? Just as Mr. Ovi found someone who was able to mentor him and took a chance on him. So if you are willing to even shoot your shots and ask one of our speakers to take a chance on you, this is the time you can do that in the next 2 minutes, just before I call on the president of the Oba Lawyers Assembly to give the vote of thanks. If you have your question, now is the moment. Ladies and gentlemen, if you're a lawyer on this call and you're yet to provide your details for your CPD certificate, please do well to do so. We need your name, your email address, your branch, and your Supreme Court enrollment number. So just put that down in the chat box, and in a couple of days after this webinar, if not immediately, you would get your CPD certificate. So I see that our speakers had done great work. We don't even have any raised hands for questions. No one at all. Oh, wow. I'm impressed. I'm really impressed. So just one more time, please. Let's put our hands together. Oh, I can see there's a question. Okay, this question is, this person is Choma Onyeka. Choma, please unmute your mic. Go ahead and ask your question to the speaker that it is directed to.
Okay, good afternoon, Ms. Victoria.
Yes, good afternoon.
As you've already mentioned, my name is Choma Onyeka, and I'd really like to I'd like to direct my question to Mr. Ovi that spoke on international law. My question to him is, how does one access international, how do I frame this question? How does somebody have access to international relations even while being like in a very underdeveloped country or a country that does not provide access to international business or trade between other countries? How does one navigate such an environment? Yeah.
Mr. Obi, are you with us? Yes. Please, question is for you.
So I think in the course of the presentation, or the course of it wasn't really a presentation, really, it was just me telling you how I built my own career. I think I really could pick any lessons from there. I think the first thing you need to do is, like I said, this was what I was told at the beginning. It's all in a book. So whether it is international trade you want to learn, or it is IP or data protection, it all starts from knowledge. So the most important thing, like for example, in my own field, international trade, the book that has helped me the most is a book by a person called Professor Peter van den Bosch. But I don't expect a lawyer in Nigeria to be able to access that book. It's quite expensive. I don't think it's easily for sale in Nigeria. But if you go on Amazon, you will see the book, for example, and you can buy it if you have the money to commit to it. But these are.
What's the title of the book?
The author is Professor Peter van den Bosch. I would just give me 1 minute, 1 second. Let me just go. I know the author. I'm trying to just remember the specific title because he has other books on this issue. He has other books on this issue. So I just want to. So, okay. So the name of the book is The Law and Policy of the World Trade Organization. The Law and Policy of the World Trade Organization. Text, cases, and materials. It's a very big textbook. I call it my Bible. After my Bible and my rosary, I hold it next to me every day. I have a copy. So for me, that is the book that has helped me the most. And you listen to what Senator said. These things are, and it might not be international trade you might fall in love with. You might fall in a different area, but some of the degrees you get in Masters in International Trade are quite expensive. I understand that they are not easily accessible and they are not system, but those books help you, give you the foundation, and you never know where the path might lead you. And I think that those of us in Nigeria at the moment have maybe a bit fortunate in the sense that I can see from news articles that the AFCFTA is gaining a lot of ground, and there's a lot of movement being done there. There's a lot of work to be done there in the next 2 or 3 years. I believe so. So if you start today, you never know where the path might lead you. So that's all I would say on that issue. So if you're in a book, I think I said it, I grew up in Benin City. When I tell people that I do international trade in Benin City, people say, oh, am I selling something? So it's not really it's not the easiest area for anybody to understand in there. So it's quite niche, even in the context of Nigeria at the moment. So if you join us on that field, you have first mover advantage till today, I believe. And there's so much space. Especially with Donald Trump and what he's doing at the moment, there's so much space to be done in that field. But for the lack of time, for the want of time, I'll just hand over. If you ask any more questions, I can send my email address to the organizers and they can share it around. I'm happy to answer questions.
All right, thank you very much, Mr. Obi. I'm sure they would appreciate that. Thank you so much for your question, Choma. So I would like to believe there are no more questions since I have not seen any more hands aside Choma. And Choma, well done on the courage to ask your question. Now, ladies and gentlemen, to bring this to a quick close, please join me as I make welcome the president of the Oba Lawyers Assembly, Mr. Emeka Onyeka, for his vote of thanks. So please, a virtual round of applause to the convener of this very beautiful and mind-blowing gathering. Thank you so much, Mr. Emeka, for the honor of being a part of the great job that you're doing with the Oba Lawyers Assembly and, for this webinar. Please, the floor is yours. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Vicky. No one could have done this better than you. I sincerely thank you for the expertise you've added to this. I'm not surprised that there were not much questions from the audience, because when the class is quiet after a particular lecture, there are only two things. Either the students understood the topic very well, or they are confused. But in this case, the first is the case. They clearly understood what it's all about. I must not fail to thank Uchechi for what she has done this afternoon. I wish I could just come back and do it on that and see what I can get at the end of the day. And Ogon, I don't know, probably you look for an apartment close to you. Obi, I'm speaking to you. I'm coming over. Or if you can't get anywhere, be sure you're getting a flatmate. Because I'm coming over for that international trade. I'll do real, I'll be your mentee for now. Until when you settle me. Then my good friend that I call the distinguished senator. Our senator, you haven't disappointed at all. And today, like other times, you have actually delivered on the topic. And I must not fail to appreciate our lady who's been doing all this behind the scene. Rita Anwuri-Chinda. Thank you so much. The lawyers will always have you in their good books. This is not the first time you've come to assist us to set up a webinar. From what has been said this afternoon, Uchechi was very clear that, particularly for those in the university, the law school, and the young lawyers, including the elder lawyers, senior lawyers, there are a lot of opportunities there to explore. All you need to do is just to look very well to observe what's around you. And I pick very serious and important mention from Obi. Obi talked about a mentorship. You don't just fly into the sky without someone guiding you. Much of the problems we are having these days, that a lot of people just want the money without the work. But you must, as a matter of a practical experience, it's important that you get someone to tell you where to get your things. It will help you. In short, it will accelerate your reach to that success point much earlier. And of course, our distinguished senator really dealt a blow to a lot of things, because importantly, you need to develop deep knowledge in any area you want. As a matter of fact, opportunities are available everywhere. Well, on them. Used as a case study, this FIFA World Cup. There are a lot of things about it. Look deeper, you see the club side, even the players. There are a lot of things about it. When a player is said to be making or is worth certain amount of money, it's not just only about what the field of play. Other things from where they get that. Good thing is that the youngsters mostly that are here on this platform are the people they call Gen Zs. And Gen Z is unlike our own time, analog and Olympia typewriter. Now you have Apple to deal with. So you have a lot of advantages to your side. And I want to invite everybody to just take advantage of what you've seen this afternoon or heard from the speakers this afternoon. I wish all of us a very successful implementations of all that I said this afternoon. Once again, on behalf of the Lawyers Assembly, Vicky, you call us Oba. It is Oba. Oba is a community in Idemili South local government of Anambra State. And like you rightly said in the opening remark, it's basically to exchange ideas, encourage our youngsters, even youngsters in the universities, the law school, young lawyers as well as the old lawyers. We exchange ideas, and from there we also assist our community. And we also export knowledge, just like we're doing today. For all persons that have joined us, I've seen someone from Abakaliki, also someone from Ikeja, and several other places that have joined. I want to thank you for making our day. It shows that indeed we are reaching out. And may all that we have said this afternoon not be in vain. Please, let's put it in the end of the day. You sure remember that it's courtesy of our lawyers assembly. God bless us. Thank you very much once again. Vicky, over to you, the floor to you. Is Vicky still there? Well, it's been somehow in Port Harcourt. You notice that I joined quite slightly late because I was trying to figure out this internet. Well, until we get it right, I'm sure that it will be better than this. Thank you so much. God bless all of us. So in the absence of any other thing, I don't know if I should draw the curtain. Rita, are you there? The civil senator, you want to say something to our lawyers or any other person? Uche?
I was just going to thank you for hosting us today. It's been a pleasure, and for me, it's always a privilege to share knowledge like this and also learn from others and senior lawyers such as you. Thank you so much.
We're pleased. It's our pleasure. Thank you so much. Vicky, you're back.
Yes, I do. I sincerely apologize. The rain has been messing up with my network, but I'm so glad it's not disrupting what I'm learning. But yes, I am back, and thank you so much. Thank you so much, Mr. Emeka. But just before we close and draw the curtains, someone had asked the question on the group chat: what is Oba Lawyers Assembly? I know I had done a brief introduction at the beginning, so I'll just say it again, and we would conclude. So I had shared with us at the beginning of the session that the Oba Lawyers Assembly is the umbrella association or organization for all indigenous lawyers from Oba community in Idemili South local government area of Anambra State. And essentially the assembly offers legal support to the community for the advancement of social, economic, political, and general welfare interests of the community. They work hard towards encouraging law students, young professionals, senior practitioners in every way possible to improve and strengthen their knowledge and practice of the law through webinars such as this one, seminars, workshops, academic and practical engagements. They advise on progressive customs laws, regulations against repressive or repugnant customs, native laws or practices, and they ensure that the customary and native laws of the community are in line with the federal, state, and local government laws. And in line with that aim and objective, they have put together this fantastic webinar to, enlighten members of the community as well as members of, Nigeria at large on the progressive aspect of the bar, I would dare say, the progressive aspect of the legal profession, that it's not your typical litigation or chieftaincy matters or labor matters, but, opportunities that can allow you join Mr. Ovi in Switzerland and, make money like Mr. Senator, or, advise the government like Ms. Uchechi, or do big IP things like the unseen hand, Ms. Rita, or be a big person like Mr. Emeka. So, ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much for taking out time from your busy schedules to, be on this conversation with us. And I'm so happy to have been a part of this. I'm certain that we've learned a lot from this session. Mr. Emeka, I don't know if there's any other thing, but I think at this point, we can say our goodbyes. You can turn on your cameras, you can take a screenshot of the session, and everybody say cheese, and you can post on your social media and talk about your experience and how this webinar had added one value or not for you. Another thing about this is the more you connect with people, the more advantage comes your way, and the more you begin to take charge of supply rather than waiting for demand. Don't forget what Mrs. Senator said. Value is at the intersection. Thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen. I am Victoria Moldo, and that is all from us today. Do enjoy the rest of your day. Bye, everyone.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye, everybody.
Bye, everyone.